But I think at this stage, what I would say is we could probably learn a lot more about this from your book, couldn't we?
Well, sure. I encourage everyone to buy the book, but yeah, I think it's an area that I tried to explore in the book, and I think thankfully I'm glad to see it gaining traction outside of, it's not just people who have read my book that are onto this. It's a broad class of entrepreneurs and people who care about health and don't want to leave the science behind. Want to make sure that we are basically doing what we're supposed to be doing as a society, is delivering science back to people in a way that impacts their lives. Mm-hmm. And if that's the goal, medicine is the prime interface for where people actually see and experience science, and I think that's something we can even get better at.
I want to circle back to one thing before I let you go, and that is you talked about an experiment that was performed around people's dental hygiene.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, going back to the idea of fear as a motivator.
Right. That was a great. I mean, I love dentistry because they have dentists have a lot of time on their hands. It's pretty simple field. I mean, it's a huge success story in terms of medicine, because people pretty much are diligent about their preventive health in terms of dentistry. Mm-hmm. They brush and floss. Now, we don't do it as much as we should, but we do it pretty well. And so this group of dentists up in Connecticut a few years ago, a long time ago, 30 years ago, they wanted to do an experiment where they wanted to get people to see if they could get people to brush and floss more often. So they decided that they wanted to use fear as the motivator. Mm-hmm. So they tried to basically scare people into brushing and flossing more. So they had 4 classes of patients that they divided up, but basically there was a low fear group. Mm-hmm. that they explained what would happen if they didn't brush and floss, and they would get periodontal disease, and they might have to get dentures, but they didn't make it seem that bad. And then at the other end, there was the high fear group, where they made it seem really bad if you didn't brush and floss your teeth. They showed graphic pictures. They talked about kind of how horrible it would be to have dentures, and then they sent them out and said, go about your life and brush and floss as much as possible to everyone. And then they all came back and they wanted to see who brushed and flossed most often. And while there was some difference between the high fear group and the low fear group, some small difference, that really wasn't. It was a very slight difference. The big distinction between whether people brushed and flossed or didn't was this other question that they asked at the beginning, which was simply they wanted to measure whether people felt that they could change their behavior. That if you're asked to change your behavior, do you think you'd be likely to stick with it? Mm-hmm. And if people said yes, then lo and behold, they were more likely to brush and floss. If they said no, mm-hmm. then they were pretty much unlikely to change their behavior. So it's this other thing going on. The idea of making people scared about their health doesn't work. But what does work is this idea of giving people the sense that they have the capacity to change. Mm-hmm. And it's a much more mushy idea. It's a much more harder thing to deliver or to somehow understand even. Mm-hmm. But if you can isolate what that is, it's called efficacy or self-efficacy. Uh-huh. If you can enhance people's efficacy, then you're onto something, and you're onto the opportunity to meaningfully change their lives. And that's what all of this is leading to.
Right, great. Well, Thomas Goetz, excuse me.
Doesn't
Thank
matter.
you very much for your time.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
It's been quite an honor and a privilege to listen to you. You're just
well, you were clearly paying close attention.
So. Oh, I've got a whole nother pad over there. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to thank you again for joining us today, and for our listeners, this is day 1 of IIR's Drug Delivery Partnerships Conference taking place in Miami, and hope you'll tune in for further interviews. Thank you.